Park was not a soldier, he was not a fighter, he was not even particularly brave, or so he believed. He was simply a medic on a station that floated at the edge of known space, and he did his job the only way he knew how. Outpost was not a kind place. It sat alone in the darkness between stars, a waypoint for traders and smugglers and refugees who had nowhere else to go. The walls were old and stained, the air with a tired sound. The people who passed through carried weapons and scars and stories they did not share. Nobody came to because they wanted to. They came because they had no other choice. Had worked in the medical bay for 3 years. In that time he had treated wounds from plasma burns, knife fights, industrial accidents and things he could not name. He asked no questions, he took no sides. When someone came through his door bleeding, he stopped the bleeding. It was simple, it was what he did. This made him strange. The other staff members did not understand him. His supervisor, a tired woman named, often warned him about his choices. One morning she found him stitching up a smuggler who was wanted in 4 systems for cargo theft. "You know who that is," said quietly, standing in the doorway with her arms crossed. Did not look up from his work. This arm had been torn open, probably in a deal gone wrong. The purple blood was thick and slow and the stitches had to be precise. "I know he is injured," said. "He is a criminal. His arm does not know that." Shook her head and walked away. She had given up on changing his mind long ago. The watched work with his 3 yellow eyes. His species was known for their cunning and their cruelty. They trusted no one, but when finished and handed him a bottle of antibiotics, the smuggler hesitated. "You ask for nothing," they said. His voice was rough like stones grinding together. "I ask that you take these twice a day," replied, "and try not to get stabbed again." They made a sound that might have been a laugh. He took the bottle and left without another word. This was how lived. He helped, people took. He did not expect anything in return. Not everyone appreciated this. In fact, most did not. That evening went to the station cantina to eat his dinner. It was a crowded place full of smoke and noise. Aliens of a dozen species sat at tables, drinking and making deals in the shadows, found a small table in the corner and ate his rice and vegetables quietly. He did not notice the traders watching him. There were 3 of them. There were tall beings with grey skin and flat faces. They were known throughout the galaxy as excellent merchants and terrible enemies. They respected strength above all things. Weakness disgusted them. One of them stood up and walked towards table. His name was, and he was large even for his species. He looked down at the human with open contempt. "You are the soft one," said loudly. The cantina grew quieter. People were watching now, the one who heals criminals and beggars. Looked up from his food. "I am a medic. I heal anyone who needs healing." Anyone laughed. It was not a friendly sound, even those who would kill you after. "If they need help, yes." Leaned closer, his breath smelled like metal. "Your species is young, perhaps you have not learned yet. Kindness is weakness, the weak are prey. You will be eaten soft meat, it is only a matter of time." His companions laughed from their table. A few others in the cantina joined them. Said nothing. He picked up his chopsticks and continued eating. Waited for a response. When none came, his face twisted with annoyance. He knocked the bowl from his hands, rice scattered across the floor. "Do you have nothing to say?" demanded. Looked at the mess on the floor, then he looked at. His expression was calm, almost sad. "I hope you never need a doctor," he said quietly, "but if you do, my door will be open." He stood, stepped around the trader and walked out of the cantina. Behind him, he could hear cursing in his native tongue. He could hear the laughter of the crowd. He did not care. Later that night found him in the medical bay cleaning equipment that was already clean, was an engineer, one of the few humans on the station. She was sharp and practical and did not suffer fools, but she did not fully understand him, but she liked him. "I heard what happened in the cantina," she said, leaning against the "Word travels fast. This station is small and bored, of course it travels fast." She paused. "You should be more careful, those could have hurt you." Put down the instrument he was polishing. "They wanted me to fight. If I fight, I become what they expect. I do not want to be what they expect." Sighed. "Kindness is a liability out here, you know that." He looked at her with those calm, dark eyes. "Then I will be liable." She did not know how to argue with that. They talked for a while longer about small things: the broken air filter in Sector 7, the shipment of medical supplies that was 2 weeks late, normal problems, safe problems. Then the alarms went off. Red lights flashed in the corridor. A voice came over the station speakers announcing an unscheduled arrival in Docking Bay 7. This was not unusual. Ships came and went at all hours. But then the voice said something else. It identified the ship's markings. His face went pale. That is not possible. Did not know much about the few did. They were predators from the far reaches of space. They stood 8 feet tall with scales and claws and 4 powerful arms. They were hunters by nature, killers by reputation. They rarely came into coalition territory. When they did, people died. He grabbed his medical bags. "What are you doing?" demanded. "It's my job." "Oh, it is a. Then it might need a doctor." He ran toward Docking Bay 7 before she could stop him. The corridors were already emptying. People were moving the other way, their faces full of fear. Security officers shouted orders into their radios. Commander was calling for the bay to be sealed. Pushed through the crowd, he reached the bay doors just as they began to close. He slipped inside. The ship sat in the center of the bay, smoke rising from its damaged hull. The cargo door was open, and on the deck, collapsed in a pool of dark blood, was the largest creature had ever seen. It was dying. The creature was even larger up close. It lay on its side, 4 arms spread across the cold metal deck, each one thick with muscle and covered in dark green scales. Its chest rose and fell with shallow, struggling breaths. The blood pooling beneath it was almost black. Stopped 3 steps away, his heart was pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. Every instinct told him to run. This was a predator, a killer. Even wounded, even dying, it could tear him apart with one arm. But he was a doctor, and there was a patient in front of him. He knelt beside the creature and opened his medical bag. Behind him he heard the bay doors grinding. Someone had forced them open a crack. He heard his voice, high and frightened. "Get out of there." He did not look back. "I am busy." "It will kill you." "Then I will die doing my job." He pulled out a scanner and began examining the wounds. There were 3 of them, deep gashes across the chest and abdomen, probably from some kind of blade. The bleeding was severe. Without treatment, they would be dead within an hour. Had never treated her before, he had never even seen one. The medical databases on the station had almost nothing about their biology. He would have to guess, he would have to improvise. He started with the basics: stop the bleeding, clean the wounds, close what could be closed. The scales were tough, harder than leather. His normal sutures would not hold. He found an industrial stapler in his bag, meant for emergency field repairs on synthetic tissue. It would have to do. He worked for an hour, then 2, then 3. Somewhere during the 2nd hour, he noticed the eyes were open. They were gold, bright and sharp, with vertical pupils like a snake. They watched him without blinking, froze. His hands were covered in the creature's blood. His tools were spread across the deck. He was completely. They did not move. They stared at each other for a long moment, could see intelligence in those eyes, awareness. The creature knew exactly what was happening. "I am trying to help you," said quietly. His voice did not shake. He was surprised by that. "I am almost finished. Please do not kill me until then." Something flickered in this expression. It might have been surprise, it might have been amusement. Then those golden eyes closed again and the creature went still. Let out a breath he did not know he was holding, then he went back to work. By the time he finished, 6 hours had passed. His hands were cramped, his back ached. His uniform was soaked with sweat and blood, but there was stable. The wounds were closed, the bleeding had stopped. Sat back on his heels and looked at what he had done. It was messy, it was imperfect, but it was enough. He suddenly felt very tired. He lay down on the cold deck beside his patient and closed his eyes. Just for a moment, he told himself, just a short rest. When he woke, sunlight was streaming through the bay windows, artificial sunlight generated by the station systems to simulate a day cycle. Several hours had passed. And there was sitting up. Scrambled backward, his heart racing again. The creature was massive. Sitting upright, its head nearly reached the cargo containers stacked behind it. Its 4 arms hung at its sides, each one ending in claws that looked like curved knives. But it did not attack, it simply watched him with those golden eyes. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then the spoke. Its voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together at the bottom of a canyon. It spoke the common tongue slowly, as if the words were unfamiliar. Why? Blinked, why what? Why did you help me? He thought about the question. It was strange that he had to think about it at all. The answer seemed obvious to him. You were dying. Yes. So I helped you. The tilted its head, the gesture was almost human. I am, your people fear us, your station wanted me dead. I heard them talking, they wanted to seal the doors and let me bleed. I know. But you came inside. Yes. Alone. Yes. The creature leaned forward slightly, its eyes narrowed. You are either very brave or very stupid, I cannot tell which. Smiled despite himself, my friend would say stupid. And what do you say? He considered this. I say I am a doctor, doctors help, that is what we do. There was silent for a long time. It seemed to be studying him, trying to understand something that did not fit into its view of the universe. I am called Roka, it said finally. I am Park. Park, Roka repeated the name slowly, testing it. You are a strange creature, Park. Before could respond, the bay doors opened. Security officers poured in, weapons raised, shouting commands. Behind them came Commander, a tall man with grey hair and a face that had seen too many problems. Medic, step away from the creature, one of the officers yelled. Stood slowly, raising his hands. There is no need for weapons, he is injured, he is not a threat. It is said coldly, it is always a threat. Roka watched the officers with calm eyes. He did not move, he did not react to their weapons or their fear, he simply sat there as if they were beneath his notice. What happens now? Asked. Looked at him with something between annoyance and disbelief. Now we decide what to do with it, and with you, you disobeyed a direct order to seal this bay. I saved a life. You risked every life on this station. Met the commander's gaze, he did not look away. No, I risked my own life, that was my choice to make. His jaw tightened, he was not used to being challenged, especially not by a quiet medic who spent his days stitching up smugglers. Before he could respond, Roka spoke again. The healer will not be punished. Everyone turned to look at even the security officers seemed startled. Roka's voice was calm but heavy with something that might have been authority. Among my people there is a debt that cannot be named in your tongue. He saved my life when no other would. I am bound to him now. His enemies are my enemies. His protection is my purpose. If you harm him, you harm me. And I promise you, Commander, you do not want me as an enemy. Silence filled the bay. Looked at Roka, then back at Roka. This is not over, he said finally. He turned and walked out. The security officers followed, though they kept their weapons raised until the doors closed behind them. Let out a long breath, he looked at Roka. What did you just do? Roka's mouth curved slightly, it might have been a smile. I told them the truth, you are mine to protect now, Park, whether you like it or not. Stared at him, he had many questions, he had many concerns, he had no idea what he had gotten himself into. But somewhere deep inside, in a place he did not often visit, he felt something he had not felt in a long time. He felt like maybe he was not alone anymore. The days that followed were the strangest of life. Roka did not leave, he could not leave, he explained, until the debt was repaid, and the debt, according to tradition, could only be repaid by saving life in return. Until that moment came, Roka was bound to him like a shadow. This meant that everywhere went, Roka followed. At first, this caused problems. The medical bay was not built for someone of Roka's size. He had to duck through doorways and squeeze between examination tables. The other staff members were terrified of him. Patients refused to enter when they saw the massive predator standing in the corner. Tried to explain that Roka was harmless, nobody believed him. He is said flatly, his species hunts for pleasure, they have wiped out entire colonies. He has been very polite, replied. Stared at him like he had lost his mind, perhaps he had. But slowly things began to change. Roka was quiet, he did not threaten anyone, he did not growl or bare his teeth, he simply stood and watched, those golden eyes missing nothing, and after a few days people began to realize that he was not going to attack. He was just there. was the first to approach him willingly. She was curious by nature, and her fear eventually lost to her interest. One evening she found Roka standing outside's quarters completely still. "Are you guarding him?" she asked. Roka looked down at her, barely reached his chest. "Yes." "From what?" "From everything." Frowned. "He is asleep. Nothing is going to attack him in his own room." Roka considered this. "You do not know that." "I am fairly certain." "I am not." He turned his gaze back to the door. "So I wait." Did not know how to respond to that. She went back to her own quarters, but she found herself thinking about the long into the night. Meanwhile, continued his work. He treated patients, he cleaned wounds, he handed out medicine, and always Roka was nearby, watching and learning. One afternoon, a young woman came into the medical bay with a broken arm. There were a small species, no bigger than human children, with soft fur and large eyes. This one was crying, her face wet with tears. Knelt beside her and spoke gently. "It is okay, I am going to fix it. It will hurt for a moment, but then it will feel better. Can you be brave for me?" The sniffled and set the bone with quick, careful hands. The woman cried out once, then went quiet as he wrapped the splint. When he finished, he gave her a small candy from a jar he kept on his desk. "There," he said, "all done. You were very brave." The smiled through her tears and left clutching her candy. Roka watched the whole thing without speaking, but later, when they were alone, he asked a question. "Why the candy?" Looked up from his paperwork. "What do you mean?" "The sweet thing you gave her, it does not heal, it has no medical purpose, why give it?" Thought about it because she was scared and sad. The candy does not fix her arm, but it makes her feel a little better. Sometimes that matters more than medicine. Roka was silent for a long moment. His expression was unreadable. "You are very strange," he said finally. Smiled. "So you keep telling me." The days turned into weeks. Roka became a fixture on the station, as much a part of the scenery as the old walls and flickering lights. People stopped running when they saw him, some even in greeting. But not everyone accepted the change. The traders had not forgotten their humiliation in the cantina, especially carried his anger like a wound that would not heal. He hated for making him look foolish, and he hated Roka for existing. One evening and his companions cornered in a maintenance corridor. It was a quiet part of the station, far from the main areas, no witnesses. "Soft meat," said, stepping close, "we have unfinished business." Looked at the three blocking his path. He was not afraid, exactly. He had accepted long ago that his kindness might get him killed, but he did not want to die in a dirty corridor for no reason. "I have no business with you," he said calmly. "But I have business with you," reached out and grabbed collar, lifting him off the ground. "You embarrass me, you made me look weak, that cannot stand." Did not struggle, "Killing me will not make you look strong." "No, but it will make me feel better." Pulled back his other arm, ready to strike. Then a shadow fell over all of them. Roka stepped out of the darkness. He had to duck to fit in the corridor. His four arms hung loose at his sides. His golden eyes glowed in the dim light. He did not speak, he did not threaten, he simply stood there. Froze. His companions took a step back, their faces pale with fear. "This is not your concern, beast," said, but his voice shook. Roka tilted his head. "He is mine to protect. Everything concerning him is my concern." "We are three, you are one." Roka smiled. It was not a friendly smile, it was the smile of a hunter looking at prey. "Then you should find more friends." The silence stretched out like a wire pulled too tight. His hand trembled where it held his collar. Sweat ran down his grey face. Then he let go. Dropped to the ground, stumbling slightly, stepped back, his eyes never leaving Roka. "This is not over," he said. "It is," Roka replied, "unless you want me to end it differently." Said nothing, he turned and walked away. His companions followed, almost running. When they were gone, leaned against the wall and let out a long breath. His heart was racing now, the fear finally catching up to him. "Thank you," he said. Roka looked down at him. "I told you, you are mine to protect." "I know, but still, thank you." Something shifted in Roka's expression, something softer than had seen before. You thanked me for saving you from but you never asked me to, you never expected me to. Any other creature would demand protection as payment for what they did, but you asked for nothing." He paused. Why? Pushed himself off the wall. He was tired and his neck hurt where had grabbed him, but he thought about the question carefully before. Because helping you was not a transaction. I did not save your life to get something in return. I saved it because it was the right thing to do, that is all. Roker stared at him for a long time. "I have lived among hunters my whole life," he said slowly. "I have never met anyone like you. I do not understand you, but I think," he hesitated, searching for the right words, "I think I would like to." Smiled despite his exhaustion. "Well, you have time. Apparently you cannot leave until you save my life." Roker made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Perhaps I will take my time then." They walked back toward the main corridors together, the Predator and the Healer side by side. And for the first time since coming to Outpost, felt something he had almost. The transmission came at midnight. Was sleeping when burst into his quarters. Roker, standing guard outside as always, let her pass without question. He had learned to recognize friends. "Wake up," said, Shaking's shoulder. "We have a problem, a big one." Sat up, rubbing his eyes. "What is it?" "Plague ship." Those two words drove all sleep from his mind. He was dressed and running toward the command center within a minute, Roker following close behind. Commander was already there at a holographic display. The image showed a large transport vessel, old and scarred, limping through space on damaged engines. According to the readout, it was still 2 hours from the station. 847 passengers, said without looking up. Refugees from the colony. Some kind of pathogen hit them 3 weeks ago. They have been turned away from every port since. Symptoms, asked. Fever, respiratory failure, internal bleeding in advanced cases, mortality rate unknown but high. Studied the display, his mind was already racing through possibilities. Do we know what the pathogen is? No, their medical officer died in the first wave. They have no one qualified to identify it. Finally turned to face him. I am ordering them to change course. They cannot dock here. Felt something cold settle in his chest. If you turn them away, they will die. If I let them dock, we might all die. We have quarantine facilities, we have medical supplies, we can. We have a medical bay meant for 50 patients and supplies that are already 2 weeks overdue. His voice was hard. I am not risking this entire station for a shipload of strangers. Stepped closer. Commander, those are people, families, children, you cannot just let them die. I can and I will. Turned back to the display. The decision is made. For a long moment said nothing, then he spoke, his voice quiet but firm. No. Turned slowly. What did you say? I said no, I will not let you do this. Met his gaze without flinching. I am the chief medical officer of this station. That gives me authority over public health emergencies. And I am this a public health emergency. The ship docks, we treat the passengers, that is final. The room went silent, his face turned red with anger. You are overstepping your authority. Then stop me. They stared at each other, neither willing to back down. Finally looked away, his jaw was tight. Fine, but when this station burns it will be on your head. He stormed out of the room, let out a breath he did not know he was holding. Appeared beside him, her face was pale. That was either very brave or very stupid. My specialty, replied. Roker stepped forward. What do you need? Looked up at him. Everything. The next 2 hours were chaos. Commandeered the largest cargo hold on the station and converted it into a quarantine zone. Air filters and isolation barriers. Other staff members, convinced by calm certainty, volunteered to help. When the plague ship finally docked, was waiting at the airlock. The doors opened and the smell hit him first. Sickness, fear, death. He pushed through it and stepped inside. The passengers were in terrible condition. They lay in rows on the cargo deck, too weak to stand. Many were coughing, some were bleeding from their eyes and mouths. Children cried for parents who could not answer. Moved among them, checking pulses, noting symptoms, making quick decisions. This one to the critical ward, this one needs fluids, this child goes to isolation room 3. Volunteers followed his orders without question, coordinated from outside the quarantine zone, managing logistics and supplies, and Roker, to everyone's surprise, proved invaluable. The spyology made him immune to most pathogens. He could move freely in the contaminated zone, carrying patients who were too weak to walk, lifting equipment that would take 3 humans to move. His presence calmed the panicking refugees. Even in their terror, they recognized strength. The first night was the worst. 17 patients died before could even examine them. He worked without rest, moving from bed to bed, trying desperately to find a pattern in the disease. By morning, he had won. The pathogen was aggressive but not invincible. It attacked the respiratory system first, then spread to the blood. The key was catching it early. With the right combination of antivirals and respiratory support, patients could recover. But they did not have enough medicines. "We need more supplies," told during a brief break. His hands were shaking from exhaustion. "At this rate, we will run out within 3 days. I have sent requests to every trading post in range, but the nearest is a week away." Looked as tired as he felt. "We might not make it. Then we ration, we prioritize, we do what we can." For 5 days they fought, slept in 2-hour shifts, eating only when forced food into his hands. He lost count of how many patients he treated. Some recovered, some did not. He tried not to think about the ones who died. On the 6th day, a group of station residents appeared at the quarantine zone entrance. They were led by a mercenary with cold eyes and a reputation for violence. "Open the doors," demanded. "We are ending this." The security officer on duty looked uncertain. "I cannot do that without authorization." "I am authorizing it. These plague rats are going out the airlock before they kill us all." Heard the commotion from inside the quarantine zone. He walked to the entrance, still wearing his contaminated medical suit. "Nobody is going out any airlock," he said. Sneered at him. "You have no authority here, doctor. You have already overstepped. These people are my patients, they are under my protection." "Your protection?" laughed. "What are you going to do, heal us to death?" Before could respond, a shadow fell over the group. Roker emerged from the quarantine zone, his massive form filling the corridor. He was covered in dried blood and other fluids. He looked terrifying. He looked at with those golden eyes. "The healer has claimed these lives," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "You will not take them." Hesitated. She was not a coward, but she knew a fight she could not win. "This is not over," she said. "I hope you are right," Roker replied. "I would enjoy finishing it." Turned and left, her followers went with her. That night collapsed. He was in the middle of examining a child when his legs gave out. He fell against a bed frame, too exhausted to even catch himself, screamed for help. Roker was there in seconds, lifting him gently, carrying him out of the quarantine zone. He woke hours later in his own bed, was sitting beside him, worry etched on her face. Roker stood in the corner, watching. "You have been asleep for 8 hours, said. "The quarantine is stable, we did not lose anyone while you were out." Tried to sit up, his whole body ached. "Lie down," Roker said. "It was not a request." "Lay back, how many did we save?" Smiled. 793 so far. Closed his eyes, tears ran down his face. "It is not weakness," Roker said quietly. Opened his eyes. "What?" Roker moved closer. His expression was unreadable, but his voice was soft. "The crying, I used to think it was weakness, but I have watched you for weeks now. You cry because you care, you break because you carry so much, and then you stand up and carry more." He paused. "That is not weakness, that is something else, something I do not have a word for." Did not know what to say. "Rest now," Roker said. "I will guard your door." Slept, and for the first time in weeks he did not dream of the ones he could not save. The quarantine ended on a quiet morning 3 weeks after the plague ship arrived. The last patient walked out of the medical zone on her own legs, smiling despite her weakness. The refugees cheered, the station staff clapped, even Commander in grudging respect. They had done it, against all odds they had saved them. Stood at the entrance of the quarantine zone and watched the survivors file past. Many of them stopped to thank him, some bowed, some cried. One old man grabbed his hand and would not let go for several minutes. "You gave us our lives," the old man said. "We will never forget." Did not know how to respond. He never did. He simply and moved on to the next patient. But the peace did not last. 3 days later, a coalition transport arrived at the station. It carried no supplies, no medicine, no aid for the recovering refugees. It carried soldiers. Learned why when Commander summoned him to the command center. They are here for the, said. He did not look happy about it. Something had changed in him since the quarantine. Perhaps he had seen what and Roker had done together. Perhaps he had reconsidered his assumptions. Either way, he seemed uncomfortable with what he was about to say. What do you mean here for him? Asked. Coalition Command received reports about an unregistered in Coalition space. They want him detained for processing, questioning, possibly imprisonment. Paused. They are not asking, they are ordering. Felt cold, he saved lives, he worked in the quarantine zone for weeks, he protected this station. He is to the Coalition, that is all that matters. Turned and walked out without another word. He found Roker in Docking Bay 7, the same bay where everything had begun. There was standing near his old ship, looking at the stars through the viewports. You know, Roker said without turning around. Yes. Roker was quiet for a moment, then he spoke, his voice calm. I could fight them, I would probably win, but then they would send more and more, until I was dead or captured and your station was destroyed in the process. He turned to face. I will not do that, not to you, not to the people you saved. Felt something breaking inside him. There has to be another way. There is not. I have lived a long life by the standards of my people. I have hunted across 100 worlds. I have killed more enemies than I can count. Roker paused. His golden eyes were soft. But these past weeks have been different. Watching you work, watching you care, watching you fight for strangers who had nothing to give you in return. He shook his head slowly. I have never seen strength like that. I did not know it existed. Roker. Let me finish, they stepped closer. I said I was bound to you until I saved your life. I thought that meant protecting you from enemies, from violence, from the obvious threats. He smiled slightly. I was wrong. You do not need protection from those things. You need protection from yourself, from the way you give until there is nothing left. Did not understand. What are you saying? Before Roker could answer, the doors of the bay opened. Coalition soldiers poured in, weapons raised. Their captain, a stern woman with grey hair, stepped forward. Designate Roker, by order of Coalition Command, you are hereby detained for questioning and processing. You will come with us peacefully or we will use force. Roker looked at her without fear. He looked at the soldiers without anger. Then he looked at. Do you trust me? Hesitated only a moment. Yes. Roker, then he began to walk toward the soldiers. Wait stepped in front of him, blocking his path. He turned to face the captain. You cannot take him. The captain raised an eyebrow. And who are you? I am the chief medical officer of this station, and this is under my protection. Your protection means nothing. He is an unregistered alien in Coalition space. He has no rights here. Did not move. He saved lives. He worked in our quarantine zone for 3 weeks. He protected refugees that your Coalition abandoned. That is not my concern. Then what is? The captain's expression did not change. Orders, step aside, doctor. Stayed where he was. The soldiers raised their weapons. The air grew tense. Then someone else walked into the bay. It was the smuggler had treated months ago, the one with the arm wound. Behind him came others, refugees from the plague ship, station workers, even a few traders, though not. They walked past the soldiers and stood beside, one by one, dozens of them. They formed a wall of bodies between the Coalition forces and Roker. None of them carried weapons, none of them made threats, they simply stood. The captain looked at the crowd with disbelief. What is this? The spoke, this is a debt, the doctor saved my life, now I stand for him. A woman stepped forward, the one with the broken arm. He saved mine too. An old human man from the plague ship raised his voice, and mine, and my daughter's, and my grandson's. Maury voices joined in, a chorus of gratitude, a wall of stubborn loyalty. The captain's hand went to her communicator. She stepped away and spoke quietly for several minutes. When she returned, her expression was hard to read. Coalition Command is reconsidering the order. She looked at with something that might have been respect. You have powerful friends, Doctor. I have patience, said, that is all. The soldiers withdrew. The captain gave Roker one last look, then followed them out. When the bay was clear, turned to face the crowd. He did not know what to say. These people had risked everything for him, for Roker, for kindness. Thank you, he managed finally. The old man from the plague ship smiled. You gave us our lives, this is the least we could do. The crowd slowly dispersed, squeezed his shoulder before leaving, the once then disappeared into the corridors. Only Roka remained. They stood together in the quiet bay, looking out at the stars. "Your debt," said softly, "is it paid now?" Roka considered the question. "I do not know what those people did. They came to protect you, not because I asked, not because of duty. They came because they wanted to." He paused. "Perhaps that means the debt was never about me at all. Perhaps it was about showing me what you already knew." "And what is that?" Roka turned to face him. His golden eyes were warm. "That kindness is not weakness, it is the strongest thing there is, strong enough to turn enemies into friends, strong enough to make hunters become guardians, strong enough to make strangers stand together against an army." He placed one of his massive hands on his shoulder. "I spent my whole life thinking strength meant being able to destroy. You taught me it means being willing to protect." Did not know how to respond, so he simply stood there feeling the weight of Roka's hand, feeling the truth of his words. "What happens now?" he asked. Roka smiled. "Now I stay not because of debt, not because of duty, but because I want to, because you are my friend Park and I would like to learn more from you." Smiled back. "I am not sure I have much more to teach." "Then I will watch you live, that seems to be lesson enough." Months later, Outpost had changed. The medical bay was larger now, expanded with donations from grateful refugees and traders, had more staff, more supplies, more resources than ever before. And standing beside him, wearing a modified medic's uniform, was Roka. The sight of her in medical gear still drew stares, but the residents of the station had learned to accept it. Some even found it comforting. If a predator that fearsome had chosen to heal instead of hunt, perhaps the universe was not as dark as they thought. One afternoon, a young girl ran up to Roka in the corridor. She was one of the plague survivors, fully recovered now. She held a piece of paper in her small hands. "I made this for you," she said, holding it up. Roka took the paper carefully. It was a drawing made with pencils. It showed a tall figure standing beside a smaller one. The tall figure had 4 arms and golden eyes. The small one wore a white coat. "It is you and Doctor," the girl explained. "See, you are protecting him." Roka studied the drawing for a long time. Something shifted in his expression, something soft. "Thank you," he said. His voice was gentler than had ever heard it. The girl beamed and ran off. Found Roka an hour later, still at the paper. "She is very talented," said lightly. Roka carefully folded the drawing and placed it inside his vest, close to his heart. She said, "It is us, you and me, protecting each other." "Is that wrong?" Roka looked at him, his golden eyes shone. "No, it is not wrong at all." They walked back to the medical bay together. The corridor was busy with life. Traders haggled, engineers argued, refugees laughed. And in the middle of it all, a healer and a hunter walked side by side. They had called him soft, they had called him foolish, they had called him weak. They had not understood that kindness was its own kind of strength, that compassion could tame monsters, that mercy could build empires that violence never could. Roka had come to Outpost as a predator. He left each day as a guardian. And the quiet medic who helped anyone who asked had taught him the most important lesson of all. That sometimes the bravest thing you can do is not fight. Sometimes the bravest thing is simply to care. He dreamed of the ones he didn't. He felt safe. And everyone else had run away. Took a deep breath, gripped his medical bag tighter and walked toward it.